Start right now. You don't need to lead everything, but start the journey of creating. Start the journey of exploring. Start it. I stay true to the process I've been in that helped me grow through growth gaps through the last 20 years. One is the power of you. The second is the power of your beliefs. And the third is the power of personal liberty. If people are wanting to explore that, it's amazing how that gets more clarity to them. And clarity is king. When we have clarity, we tend to walk with confidence. We tend to have stronger conviction. Your greatest ministry as a business owner is not to your customers, it's the people you employ. And if you have a ministry, you're going to impact more of their family, their legacy, than your customers.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now, let's get it started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I'm your host as usual. And in our studio, we have Coach Quinn Harwood. How are you today, sir?
Rick, man, I am so fired up to be on your show. I just love what you're doing. I love the mission you're moving, and I love the impact you're making on that entrepreneurial, that business founder, and people that are really striving to go next level. And I will say, I got something for you, Rick. I got a signature dad joke for you. So I know a lot of people that are listening, they may be able to try to scale their business. So here's the joke of scaling. What is a dad joke that's worth $1,000?
What is it?
A granddad joke.
See, that's the type of laugh. You know, my son, he like really gets hard on me about dad jokes. You know, and if I tell him that joke, he's gonna chase me around. Awesome. Before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done it already, I would be honored if you would like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. So without further ado, let's get it started. So Coach, you've had an interesting journey over the past, X number of years. You want to give our audience a little background, who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do?
Yeah, I'll start with the why. I'll kind of work from the inside out. My heart is really for that next generation of mission movers, people that their field are called for more. They're looking to make more of an impact. Let's say significance is their journey. And my heart is to empower that mission mover so that they can really change the world they influence. And as a professionally, certified coach and long history between professional basketball leadership and operations, my quest is to really empower them through developing life skills, leadership skills, and business skills so they can fulfill that mission. There's a lot to the journey, but I know primarily we're working with and coaching to your fam, your peeps, that entrepreneurial business founder, someone's looking to scale. And where my journey really began, I went through a failed business opportunity. And so in my early kind of 30s, I had a business venture with a partnership, and I had worked in the corporate world, and I made this big statement that we're going to branch out and start this entrepreneurial business. And the business actually started to succeed. Ship crashed. And it was a world of misery, Rick. Out of that, we went through a financial crisis in the family home. I had three, wife and three kids at the time. And it was a challenge. So years later, unfortunately, I found myself in a similar spot. And COVID, and I say COVID is the year of crisis or casualty in my story, but that is also what, out of that mess, birthed forth what the entrepreneurial space I'm in now, which is called GrowthTime. And GrowthTime is this coaching platform where I coach life leadership in business to empower mission movers so they go further and faster and really live a big, fulfilled, energized life that God's called them to live. And that casualty year of COVID was very transitional for me into taking that next step and finding pain in the purpose.
Wow, dude. I mean, it's really, I think it's really interesting. People that, have that other people first mentality, especially it's like you're helping other people achieve what they want to, what they're, born to do. Where does that come from?
I think the innate desire to want to help people is within us. I think it gets very diluted by our selfish goals, our selfish ambition, our pride or ego. It gets kind of diluted. And I think the most effective place that I come from is really brokenness. I think with a man or a woman or whoever's called to lead a mission, once they've been broken of themselves and they've been broken of their self-focus and their pride, Well, what happens then is it's not about you anymore at the core, and it's about a bigger purpose or bigger mission. And you open yourself up to really love and how to love people and care about them. And once you're motivated by that, love and equipping people, the world changes. Your business changes. The way you approach your career changes. And I think that's pivotal. I went through a breaking season actually really early in my life and a few others, but it was in my early 20s when I was playing professional basketball. And I was in this space of trying to achieve the NBA dream, the NBA goal. But yet I was struggling with myself, struggling with my identity, skewed concepts of masculinity, and just struggling with living a life that was pretty self focused at its core. But I hit a breaking point, Rick, and I hit a lonely space, and my beliefs began to change. It was in my early 20s, and it's kind of crazy. What really opened my growth time story was a conversation I had with a roommate who was in the minor league basketball with me at the time. His name was Ronnie Grandison, and we played in the CBA, which, if you're a sports fan, that was the precursor to the G League. That was the feeder league to the NBA. And just in a dark space, cold as a witch's bosom there in Omaha, Nebraska. And I was cold, and it was like, man, where's life going? And he asked me a question, Rick, that forever changed my life. And it changed it in a number of ways. He was asking me a question that was faith based. He said, hey, where are you at with your life with Jesus? And I said, man, I got enough stuff I'm going through. I was in a broken relationship with a girl, and I was trying to figure out if I would ever make it. And I said, I'll get to that when I'm older. But the question stuck with me because of this, Rick. It made me realize I didn't know what I believed. I
Mhm.
really didn't know what I believed about faith. I didn't know what I believed about myself. Ego and pride was tied to my performance in life, which is consistent when you coach a lot of high performers, even the corporate world. Our performance goes up, we go up. Our business succeeds, we go up, but it doesn't, we're down. And I didn't have a rooted belief in who I was and what I believed. And that was the
Mm.
beginning of my growth time, but it was also the beginning of breaking me of realizing I didn't know it all and I didn't have it all together. And I needed to seek something bigger to get a hold of really what mattered, what was important in my purpose in life.
You said you spoke about what I took to understand it as grounding. And you said that you essentially lacked grounding in where you were at that time. What does that look like in people that you work with?
Coach a high degree of business owners, like small business owners, in terms of revenue and scale of their business. And what I find is, even as they're navigating their growth or their business growth, they have this wrestle point and tension of getting strapped, burned out, tension filled, overwhelmed, highs and lows. And that affects really how they show up in their personal life, their family, and even their leadership. What you coach to oftentimes outside of business and strategy and opportunities, you coach the life component of it. And most of the time, there's this growth gap, I call it, that I address actually in a book I just released called Growth Time. It's called The
Mhm.
Power of You. And they're really missing on grounding stabilizers of their identity, of their mission, of their purpose, and the space they operate within themselves and how that coincides with how they view their spirituality and their God space. So I end up coaching to sometimes their personal growth in terms of their identity, their values, their beliefs and stabilizers, and their
Mhm.
God space, really, which is where they find purpose, meaning, connectivity, their God improvements that need to make. I find that when people have strong stabilizers in their life around their personal and their, the divine space of who they are, man, like their confidence just goes through the roof. I mean, their confidence in who they are and where they're going is attractive. It is like dope. It is like fire. And that gives them an enormous amount of resilience to get through their business, their opportunities, their struggles themselves. So they can be really effective at running their companies and running their organizations and running profitability. So I've seen that consistently in the owners I coach.
Wow, wow. It's interesting. You said, I guess, on a high level, you talk about God space. You talked about the outcomes, what the resilience and the grounding and that sort of thing that comes with it. But I mean, I think that it's a little bit of an ambiguous term. It's like, people believe in God or gods or, the universe or, whatever it is, but it sounds as though you're talking about something that is more almost tactile, if you will. Can you go into that a little bit more? What that
It,
means and, why it would make these types of changes in people's perspectives and lives?
as a professional coach, part of the model of ICF, which is kind of a high level credential program, is we coach to the whole person. So the whole person is part of what helps move and motivate you in your decision making, not just in life and your leadership, but also your business. And what I find is there's an appetite out there for spirituality, but it's generally one of the most unclear, uncluttered, resistant spaces that people want to navigate, talk to, or explore. That's where I've seen the power of coaching. If people are wanting to explore that in a safe space, it's amazing how that gets more clarity to them. And clarity is king. When we have clarity, and that is king on our lives, we tend to walk with confidence. We tend to have stronger convictions. To do that tactilely, just from since we're on this, which is kind of unique about the spiritual growth journey, is there's a couple really core questions, powerful questions that I'll help people explore. I call it your purpose plan. There's a purpose and plan for humanity, you as a person, and there's one for you in the God component. And there's three questions for it. It's why, how, and what. Why, how, and what. And the clearer you are on the why, how, and what of your God space, the more confidence and power you walk in life. So why did God create you? What does he
Mhm.
expect of you? And how does God see you? Some of the three most tactical, powerful questions that a man or woman can answer and gain clarity on. And once you're in that self discovery growth journey in those three areas, you have a clearer purpose plan of God's plan for you. That also matches up with the purpose plan for you as a human. You have
Mhm.
core values that you need to clearly identify as a person. You have a driving motivator, a mission statement, and those who I've coached through, and I personally took the time through my early 30s, which was a godsend. Wish I did that even earlier, but a personal
Mhm.
mission statement, what really was motivating, driving me. And so you have a why, how your values in terms of you as a human, and you also have a what. You have a big what in life. People that are attracted or people I coach, there's an intrinsic part, Rick, that they know they're called for more.
Mhm.
They're not okay just being average or just going through the motions. They know they're called for more. And there's this healthy, restless itch to achieve more. And they got to get clarity on what their big what is, what their real mission is. And if that's
Mhm.
building a business, awesome. Well, how's that impacting people and lives? Hey, if it's being a steward and a coach or a leader in your home, if it's scaling a business to multi-million, billion dollars, great, but you're clear on what your big what is. So the clarity on that, it's amazing those growth gaps that exist in a younger generation, but
Mhm.
often when there's stress, anxiety, tension point, unfulfilledness, that I coach people in their 40s and 50s, it's the same issue. They just haven't got great at that growth gap on the power of you.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like, we go through these phases of life and we struggle. You know what I'm saying? It's sometimes it's painful, and we hear all the stories about, people that are giving up or people that are throwing the towel in, seeking life changes, et cetera, et cetera. But if I understand what you're saying correctly, when we have a mission, when we have a powerful mission, we have a powerful what, that's bigger than ourselves, that gives us a little bit more foundation in which to keep going, to stay, I'll use my term relentless in terms of that longer view. Is that what you're seeing? Is this what you're coaching people towards?
100%. That's a winning mindset to stay in line with what your mission is, Rick. That's a relentless pursuit of winning and how we show up each day. Give you context where I started with growth time and where that came from. I mentioned quickly about COVID was casualty, it was crisis. Well, to be transparent, it was crisis on a lot of levels, and it was a messy situation. Right before COVID hit, I was just in a heartbreak space of going through this painful divorce, unexpected, 20 years in, that was just brutal, with three kids. And unfortunately, it was just a challenge. And as much as I tried to do the right things and stay faithful, there was a part where there was just contentious. And so everything was just blowing up in my personal life, shaking my identity, even as a father and what was so meaningful for me. Well, that was one layer to navigate through. 2 months later, COVID hits. And at the time, I'm a mid-senior level manager operating fitness facilities for a group called 24 Hour Fitness in Austin in the Midwest. And boom, everything shot down in COVID, like crisis. We get furloughed, we get put on hold. 24 Hour Fitness used to be one of the biggest, baddest brands in the fitness industry. They scale back, close 124 of their gyms, and my market is eliminated, my job's eliminated. And it's just like, wow, this is a mess. And the dog died, Rick. The dog died. I mean, it's just
Jesus.
like a bad country song, right? I
Yeah.
can laugh now with it. But in that mess is where the mission came forward. And if you're
Mm.
listening and you're kind of thinking about when is the right time for me to launch out and pursue something bigger that I'm called to do, whether that's a business, a side hustle, or scale of business you're corporating, there is no right time. The right time is now to start moving towards that mission you have. I love what Dr. Martin Luther King said, man. It's always the right time to do the right thing. And in our life stories, I felt moved to start this coaching program called GrowthTime. And I worked with the
Mm.
coach. I worked with what I call God. He's a kind of an acronym I use for the great growth coach. And
Mm.
out of that was birth GrowthTime, which basically took a lot of the lessons of building confidence from someone who just wrestled with self doubt for the first quarter of my life and took those lessons of experience and created this clear pathway. And that's what really Growth Time, the book is. It's a clear path to unlock your best life and leadership. Great for that next generation. And if you're leading and overseeing people, you need to get the book in their hands because it's a message and a resource, how they can help show up better for you at work. But that got created out of that pain. And it was struggle, it was doubt, it was fear, it was all the things that I had to work through to launch this in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of pain, in the midst of trying to navigate my own personal concerns and fears. But step by step, day by day, kind of staying faithful to the higher vision, what I felt like I was called to do, it got traction. It made progress. And so it was powerful, Rick. And so I just want to encourage the audience out there, wherever level you are, if you're listening to this because you're trying to get the inside skinning of a winning mindset to start a business or start that next level you have, start right now. You don't need to leave everything, but start the journey of creating, start the journey of exploring, start it. And if you're in that place of scaling your business, recall the mission you were started with. Get that mission in
Mm.
front of your people. Build that mission, vision, value, dream for the people under you and really help them. Now, I'll just add one more thing, Rick, because this just came to me, is the biggest challenge I see with business operators that I coach is putting people over profit,
Mm.
truly putting people over profit. A lot of operators go consumed with the results, the performance, and it's intoxicating when you see numbers and you see results
Yeah.
and you want the big
Yeah.
numbers and the big performance. But what is often the challenge when they go through some roller coasters is they don't have a consistent plan or process to sow into their people's lives. If you ask them as a small business leader, owner, operator, what's your business plan to develop and grow your people? It gets kind of sketchy. It gets sidetracked. Oh, yeah, maybe they splash in a little bit of like a podcast or a thought, but there's no consistent plan. If it's about numbers and performance, they'll have a plan if they're good with strategy with the business. But if it's about the people, they're just not tuned into how important it is to grow your people.
You know what happens? I mean, I think, I've had, other companies, of different sizes, and I've always been interested in my people and creating environments where people, where we're safe to work. You can say what you need to say, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that part that you're talking about was kind of an afterthought. It wasn't something that came naturally. I'm trying to keep the business in business. I'm trying to make sure we have enough people and resources and everything else. As you said, essentially, I'm looking at the numbers and making sure we're profitable. How do you guide people that are in that mindset? I mean, the idea that we're driven, which means that, as profit is coming in, we're reinvesting in the company, we're looking at new opportunities. So how do you get, I'm going to say it like this, how do you get that balance to be able to keep your people top of mind? You're serving your people. I look at it like from a servant leadership perspective, I'm serving my people. I'm giving them work. I'm making sure they have everything that they need to do their jobs. But, you're talking about something that goes beyond that. So how do you do that?
You challenge people as a coach, Rick. And so what I work with my business owners are is you're absolutely right. It's not intrinsic, it's not intuitive. How do I grow people? How do I grow them? How do I really keep them engaged? And there's lots of layers to it, but it's not top of mind. So as a coach, if you're challenging them that, if they see the value of it, they're going to start moving towards that as part of their operating system or operating model to have baked in a consistent rhythm of people growth and then baked in consistency of what good people growth looks like. And for those that are listening and you're questioning yourself is, do you really have a really good people growth strategy in place? Is it consistent? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it time bound? And you're like, you're really questioning it. You're in the right spot to be listening today because you're going to make more of an impact. And your greatest ministry as a business owner is not to your customers, it's the people you employ. And if you have a ministry, call it a place to grow them through their life and their personal professional growth, you're going to impact more of their family, their legacy than your customers. Sounds funny, but that's the journey of it. So getting people in the right framework of mindset, that's what we do as coaches. That's winning mindset, Rick, right? Coach, you're quite to the thought of
100%.
mindset. Mindset changes behavior, and write that down and sit on that for a good 20 minutes and think about any time you've made a shift or change, even today, and how you're feeling. Nothing changed till your mindset changed. Your behavior didn't change. If you're not coaching your people and shifting their mindset, you're coming short on changing their behavior, which is affecting your profitability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. People that love to work, love working with you, they'll certainly put in that extra effort. One of the things, we left my opinion, we left a bit of an elephant in the room. So you were a pro ball player, then you weren't, and then you were a corporate exec, then you weren't, then you were married, then you weren't, and you went through all of these changes, and I know that they impacted you. I know that they impacted your life, your value. I mean, we as men a lot of times define ourselves by what we're able to accomplish, what we do. And all of that changed for you a number of times, and you're here today. I need to understand how you did that. As entrepreneurs, we go through different changes. We go through all sorts of things. We lose companies, we start companies, and it's hard sometimes. It's painful sometimes. In your journey, again, you've changed and you've gone through a number of these. What's your secret? How are you here today doing this?
I think I stay true to the process I've been in that helped me grow through growth gaps through the last 20 years of my life. And in the journey of growth time, in the book, there's three components laid out that help a person navigate life skills to show up. One is the power of you, the second is the power of your beliefs, and the third is the power of personal liberty. And real quick, personal liberty is a freedom within that we can gain to live our most God authentic version of ourselves and to show up each day. And it's interesting is that I still have to live those out each day, Rick. I still have to recall that as soon as I come off those growth lessons or think that I've mastered them, I'm going to fall back into a place of fear, doubt, struggle, self focus. So those growth lessons are so important in our life. The rest of the book helps with leadership because we're leaders within our context of people we influence in ourselves, in our homes, in our businesses. The principles and the coaching and the growth story behind those are so important to me. I will share with just love and reverence for anyone where they are with understanding of their spiritual growth journey. What I found for me is that when I'm stripped bare and naked, when I'm exposed and vulnerable, when the world and life and relationships and things have crashed multiple different times in my life, there is a person, a relationship I lean on that has transcended everything I do. And that relationship has never failed me, Rick, never failed me. And that's why I love the person of Jesus for me. That relationship has been a rock, a strength, a guidance, a support, an uplifter. And that relationship has been and will continue to be a game changer in keeping me focused on the things that are valuable and important in myself and my life. And even as I try now to move a mission forward, much like people on this call, I'm in the same journey. I'm looking to move this mission forward of growth time to really reach the next generation and help them grow strong in life and leadership as a coach. It's my passion, it's my heart. But that,
Mm,
and I may go through some ups and downs, Rick. Every entrepreneur knows it's never glory. It's not always glory. It's a freaking
yeah.
grind. It's a challenge. It's a day by day pushing, pressing, setting goals, reestablishing them. Dead end. What about this opportunity? How can I get this layer? It's a constant source of pursuing relentlessly how to win. But that relationship, Rick, a game changer. And I'll never let it go.
I mean, I think I hear you. I hear what you're saying. We see, Jesus in the Bible, and we see, we would say, there are other faith traditions, that have their, I don't know, their rules or, their foundations or whatever it is. But you're talking about something that is, in my opinion, that's deeper, that's more intimate. How did you grow from, let's use an education perspective. How did you grow from theory, in your mind, just like, hey, you know what, this is what I know, to actually living this? Because the living part of this is the only thing I can think of that would really enable you to lean on this and push forward and keep going.
Yeah, Rick, you're gonna get me to cry on this show, man. I love you. I love you, bro.
I'm here for you, man.
Yeah, man. Appreciate the love, man. It's experience. So religion is a set of rules and restrictions and guidelines. Relationship transcends that. And relationship's all about experience. Your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your business, your relationship with food, your relationship with fitness. We all have these relationships that we engage in by design or by default. We're engaged in these relationships and how we relate to things. But our experience will always dictate our relationship and what we place on that relationship. So to answer your thought, Rick, really in my early 20s, when I was confronted with the thought of what I believed, I found this scripture that's hit me between the eyes that says, forgive because your Father in heaven forgives you. And if you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. The honest space was I needed a lot to be forgiven of if I was real with myself. I was really transparent. Man, there was a lot of life I lived that I know I wasn't living right, even by my own standard. But in that, if I was going to receive forgiveness, I had to give forgiveness. And what that meant was conquering this mountain that I had avoided for years. And that mountain for me was this relationship with my father. Father, love him, worked hard, great work ethic, strong will, determined, a headstrong dude. Man, really headstrong. But there's demons in the family. You know, if you've ever been in an addiction based household, you know it. There's emotional disconnect, there's discord, there's anger, there's unprocessed life and emotions. And at the core of it, you build up a lot of resentment and you build up a lot of bitterness. And that was where I was in life, Rick. And once I took the step to express how I felt, I told my dad I loved him, which I had never done really. And I wanted a relationship with my father. And I exposed all this. It was a starting point for me, Rick. After that moment, I can remember to the day I was driving home from Myrtle Beach, Virginia. We lived in Virginia. We're down at Myrtle Beach, hanging out, saw my dad down there. And someone had given me this kind of Christian music tape, and I decided to put it on. And I'm talking tape because we ain't talking downloads. We ain't talking CDs. Like we're going back to cassettes, man. We're going back. We're going way back. But he gave me this cassette, and I was still more like, man, let's get my Snoop Dogg, NWA, Gangster
Mhm.
Lean on. And I gave this music a shot. And all I can say is I had an experience with God in the car. And I was driving a small little Camaro, but God just filled that car up that day, Rick. And he filled my heart up.
Mm.
And I just felt so free in that moment. And that relationship became real to me. And I said, whatever this freedom is I'm experiencing, I'll use all my competitive mindset as a pro athlete and I'll pursue this because I can't let go of this. And I had many chances to, many places to, many discouragements, frustrations, but the core, the experience of that relationship is what moved me into making it an anchor in my life story.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna take a leap and ask how that relationship transpired into developing growth time. You know, the both the practice and developing the book.
Yeah. I think that relationship itself healed to a high degree. Like my dad and I, years later, man, we were tight. We were really good. We developed a really open relationship. He changed and shifted. He went from a 59-year-old self-focused dude to really caring about his wife again, my mom, caring about me, reinvesting in the relationship. So it was transformational with it. I think where my dad continued to play a role as relates to growth time was in the mess of going through the painful challenge of divorce, the legal fees, the litigation, just the horrendous component of that, and is still having a vision for something greater that came out of it. To have my dad believe in what I was doing, which was absent for so many years of my life, for him to intrinsically believe that, Quinn, you're pursuing your higher calling and to communicate it like that, it was powerful. It gave me just another layer of wings under my sails. And for a man who had missed that kind of affirmation for 40 something years, to know that you had a father's blessing in what you were doing, and he saw it. He didn't resist it. He wasn't skeptical, like he was a critical dude. He was
Mhm.
believing in growth time. It just added confidence to me that, yes, I'm going for this. Any entrepreneur needs support. I don't care who you are. You're going to need support from up above, but you're going to need support from family, a friend,
Mhm.
a relationship. When I got into entrepreneurial space, I got involved in coaching communities. My journey was to become a professionally, certified credential coach. I got involved in coaching circuits. I got involved around like-minded people. Even today, I create business small groups, group coaching for small business owners because they need to be around like minded people. They need to get the space of what it means and what it entails, an identifier. And so those things are still important no matter what level of business you're operating today. And you're going to need the support, not just the goals and the tactics and the strategy. You're going to need that support. So my dad played a role of supporting it, and belief is one of the most powerful forces we have on this earth. Once you lose your belief in you, your mission, or yourself, or your business, your confidence lags and you just stop showing up and things crater. So I would say, really, the role he played with that, Rick, is, and he was older at this point. I mean, he passed away a few years ago, but for him to believe in what was happening was powerful. It was an uplifter.
Wow, wow, wow. That's absolutely beautiful. That's moving. I was thinking about, you know, my own relationship with my dad and how it's changed over the years. And like, you know, he is my biggest fan as well. And I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate that. Um, speaking of, I want to talk about the book. You know, why you wrote it, why someone should read it, what makes it different than all of the other material out there. If you can go into that a little bit for us.
Yeah, that's like 4 layers, Rick. I'm gonna have to like try to ping them off my brain, each one, right? I'd
You
say
got this, man. Yeah,
I
I got
got it,
this.
man. You throw me a pass, I'm gonna shoot that jump shot. That's what I do. I'm a shooter, Rick. We're gonna shoot it.
Yes,
We're gonna
sir.
shoot the ball. Growth time was really birthed one night at about 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning.
Okay.
At that point, I felt really moved to start life coaching and leadership coaching. And I thought through, what's my pathway to coach people to success? Like, how do I coach people? I didn't really necessarily have a vision for coaching other people's programs. I knew that something
Mhm.
was in me to say, hey, how do I coach them through what I would envision a pathway that involves personal growth, professional growth, God growth? And so from that night, I literally scaled out all 6 kind of growth zones of growth time and penned them out from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning. And it was like divine revelation just dropping in me. And it was like this recall of God taking me through a lot of the trials and tribulations of my last 20 years and showing me what he was teaching me and how I overcame those to still live a confident life, to still live with boldness and confidence, which was my biggest issue as a person: self doubt, imposter syndrome, unbelief. And so once I understood more meaning behind my 20 years and the different growth zones that, say, God took me through, they just started penning out. and I got clarity on it. And it took me 4 years to write the book because there's a
Mhm,
lot that goes from inception to clarity. But the
mhm,
framework, Rick, was really written out in one night. And I
mhm,
said, wow, this is how I can really help that next generation. This is how I can help my Zillennial fam, as I call them, that Gen
mhm,
Z millennial. And here's how I can help people that are my age, this Gen X, this, 40, 50 plus generation that is now having to lead and hire all those Gen Zs. They need a tool and resource to help them grow through life and leadership. It's what they're missing. So after I kind of penned it out, I started coaching to it. And that's where magic happened. It's one thing to
mm,
have your own experience and say, hey, this is what got me through. But if you prove out that it's valuable to other people, then you got something. And just like a service or a product or whatever people started their inception of their business, it's like you had an idea, you had a product, you had a service, you prove it out, you test it, and it works. And then you go market it and you promote it, and you feel like your service product will make a difference in the industry or the scope you're trying to. So I
mhm,
began to coach through it. And it was just like, it was lightning, like in a bottle. It was
mhm,
fire. Next
mhm,
generation, I'd say was lit. I would call it dope, but it just changed and transformed people. People started to get more mental clarity. They developed life and leadership skills. Their
mhm,
businesses started to scale and grow. They aligned their mission with how they were going to make money. They advanced their careers. And I'm like, dang, this message. And the book's more of a message, but it's a resource because growth time has some work you got to do, baby. It ain't just about
mhm,
just, oh, I just really cool book. No, it's written as a coaching fable, which is really cool. But man, I started seeing change and transformation in people. I'm like, man, I got to keep
mhm,
going. I got to keep moving this mission. I got to keep getting this message out so that Zillennial fam and the people that are hiring them have a clear path. And really, that's the subtitle. It's the clear path to unlock your best life and leadership.
And I mean, just to reiterate, go into what makes this different than other coaching programs. I know that there's some that are off the shelf. I meet coaches all the time. What makes yours a standout program? We talked about results, but the program itself, the experience even itself, what makes it unique? What makes someone say, "Hey, I need to go with Quinn. I don't want to go with these other 50."
Yeah. Two things. One, the personal coaching lens is what I would bring to a one on one coaching journey, right? And I think where I've evolved and God has grown me is people that are on the right fit for. I know if we're the right fit, man, growth and change is coming to your life and it's going to change your world. From the growth time journey, I think what I know makes it really unique is it's touching on a layer that is so avoided in a really simplified way in personal growth and development. Everyone tiptoes around the universe or the thought of something bigger. Follows this story of a person who is basically trying to find themselves, a former professional athlete who runs into a coach of academy called Max Potential Academy. And we call this coach Coach G. And Coach G becomes this metaphor of how to help this person, the character Peter, grow through life and leadership. And it involves quite specifically the tone of personal growth, personal improvement, and God improvements in a really simplified way to say, I can put some hooks in that. It's not fuzzy. There's a lot of noise out there, but this is bringing clarity to the step by step 3 growth zones I'm going to have to deal with at my life to really show up and be my best and be a mission mover. So I think what makes it unique, I think with me as a coach is I'm not afraid to navigate and help people navigate. It's not about me and my beliefs. I've coached
mhm,
atheists before. It's about helping people navigate their personal growth in that lens and how impactful that may or could be in their life story. And that's unique.
mhm,
You don't find a lot of personal self-help groups that are willing to expose or challenge or help you explore what that spiritual growth looks like for your life, but in the
mhm.
context of really giving you practical self help, human terms of what it's going to take to get there.
Okay, okay. One other thought I had, just going back to you mentioned it here briefly. You talked about, I think you said called it the 3 pillars. You talked about your mission. You talked about how important it is to, of course, your faith. You talked about how grounding those things are for you. Okay. I mean, you're an athlete. How do you make sure that these aren't just theory for you? How do you make sure these are fully embedded into your thinking so that each day you're going out, you're facing challenges, you're facing life, you immediately know what to turn to, or perhaps even have it, in your subliminal to get back on track, stay on track. How do you do that?
It's the word that all of us struggle with, Rick, but it's the indispensable truth. It's called discipline and habits.
Well, I didn't know you were going to say that.
Running a business, leading and directing, personal, man, the crux of it is the habits and disciplines. They reveal our character. They reveal what was really important to us. And that's putting work into the system. Disciplines and habits.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. All right, last question for you. So the name of the show, as you know, is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We all define winning however we want to, however we need to. And we've talked about this a few times, so I'm going to ask you to have a different answer for us. The hard part is that relentless pursuit, being able to keep going regardless of what happens. What do you recommend to our audience to maintain that relentless pursuit of winning?
To maintain the relentless pursuit of winning starts with winning the day, a win the day mindset, something that's splashed into growth time. But how do you win the day? Hard to win the week, hard to win the month, hard to win your year, hard to win your relationships, hard to win your future, hard to win your kids. It's hard unless you are saying, how do I win today? And how do I define winning today? Business, personal. If there's not a win the day mentality, good chances are you're not going to win. And if you can't define what winning looks like, you're probably going to lose. Or you're probably going to end up drifting.
Yep. Yep. Win the day. Win the day. Excellent. Excellent. So if we want to get the book, if we want to work with you, what is the best or what are the best ways to do that?
I'd say the most powerful way. I know you've got a good presence on LinkedIn, Rick, and mine as well. And I think the most effective way is just get connected for free. I write a weekly kind of column called Monday Movers Mindset. If you reach out to me on LinkedIn and just follow me, you're automatically subscribed to free coaching, Monday Movers Mindset. It's a powerful way. And that's something I started during the messy part of COVID. I started it for me and lining my mindset up each Monday, what would be key for me to win that week. And I carried that mindset through the week. I started writing about it, started sending it out. People loved it. And I've just continued on a winning mindset for the week. And Monday Movers Mindset, go to LinkedIn, ping me. You'll automatically get subscribed. It's a great way to connect. And I would love if you would DM me one area of your business, your leadership, your life where you feel stuck. Send me a personal DM. I will personally respond with some thoughts to help support you. As far as the book, get it on Amazon. It's a great message and resource. If you're owner, operator, leader, corporate person, this, I promise you, will be a game changer if you get it into the hands of the people that you're leading and managing. It'll get them strong in life, and that's dictating how they show up for you at work, and it'll get them strong in leadership, on leadership focus, on how to navigate the management and leadership style. Get it for them.
Excellent. And what I'll do is I'll put a book cover. Send me a book cover. I'll put it on your show notes page. A link to where they can buy it. Yep, that one right there. We'll put that out. We'll put a link to where people can get that. And I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile. Anything you want to leave our audience with?
Mission movers are mountain climbers. You've got a mountain to climb. You're called to climb that mountain. You need a clear path, coaching, professional growth. Climb your mountain. Stay focused on being a mission mover and climb that mountain. And that mountain will move.
Coach, you're just leveling the bar. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you. I appreciate our conversation.
Man, I love you, Rick. Man, it's been a joy, and I really sincerely hope our relationship, there's a good plan for it. There's more to it. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Outstanding. I'm with you on that. And folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We'll catch you next time.